The story of Mexico's economy begins long before the arrival of Europeans. Ancient Mesoamerican civilizations, including the Olmecs, Maya and Aztecs, developed sophisticated economies. These civilizations thrived on agriculture. They cultivated crops like maize, beans, and squash. Trade was vital to these societies. They exchanged goods across vast distances, connecting different regions. The Maya, renowned for their knowledge of mathematics and astronomy, established extensive trade routes throughout Mesoamerica. They traded valuable commodities such as obsidian, jade, and cacao. The Aztecs, centered in Tenochtitlan, present-day Mexico City, developed a powerful empire supported by a tributary system. Their economy relied on agriculture, tribute from conquered peoples, and bustling marketplaces. These pre-Columbian civilizations laid the groundwork for Mexico's future economic development. Their legacy can be seen in the country's enduring agricultural traditions and its strategic location for trade. The arrival of the Spanish in the 16th century would dramatically alter the course of Mexico's economic history. The Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire in 1521 marked a turning point in Mexico's history, forever altering its social, political, and economic landscape. The Spanish brought with them a new economic system based on extraction and mercantilism, fundamentally changing the way resources were utilized. Silver mining became the engine of the colonial economy, driving both wealth and exploitation. Vast deposits of silver were discovered in Mexico's northern regions, attracting waves of settlers and laborers. This led to the establishment of mining towns like Guanajuato and Zacatecas, which became bustling centers of activity. To support the mining industry, the Spanish established large estates called haciendas, which were crucial to the colonial economy. These estates produced agricultural goods and supplied labor for the mines, creating a symbiotic relationship between agriculture and mining. The hacienda system created a highly unequal society, with a stark divide between the wealthy landowners and the laborers. Spanish elites controlled vast tracts of land and resources, consolidating power and wealth. Indigenous people were often forced into labor on these estates, facing harsh conditions and exploitation. The colonial economy was heavily reliant on Spain, with trade routes firmly established to benefit the Spanish crown. Mexico served as a source of raw materials and a market for Spanish goods, ensuring a continuous flow of wealth to Spain. This dependence hindered the development of local industries, stifling economic growth and innovation within Mexico. The wealth generated from silver flowed primarily to Spain, enriching the Spanish elite while leaving local economies underdeveloped. This left the majority of Mexicans living in poverty, struggling to survive in a system designed to benefit the few at the expense of the many. Mexico's War of Independence from 1810 to 1821 brought an end to Spanish rule. However, independence did not lead to immediate economic prosperity. The newly independent nation faced numerous challenges. Years of war had devastated the country's infrastructure and economy. Silver production, which had been in decline, plummeted further. Internal conflicts and political instability plagued Mexico throughout the 19th century. The country grappled with defining its national identity and establishing a stable government. These challenges made it difficult to attract foreign investment or implement coherent economic policies. Despite these difficulties, there were some attempts at reform. Liberal reformers sought to break up the power of the Catholic Church and the military. They also aimed to create a more equitable distribution of land. However, these reforms were often met with resistance from conservative forces. The late 19th century saw a period of relative stability and economic growth under the rule of Porfirio Díaz. Díaz's regime, known as the Porfiriato, pursued policies of modernization and industrialization. Foreign investment was encouraged, leading to the expansion of railroads, mining, and manufacturing. While the Porfiriato brought economic progress, it also exacerbated social inequalities. The benefits of growth were largely concentrated in the hands of a small elite and foreign investors. The majority of Mexicans remained mired in poverty. Landlessness and exploitation of peasants became increasingly widespread. Díaz's authoritarian rule and the growing gap between rich and poor created resentment among the working class and peasantry. This discontent eventually erupted in the Mexican Revolution of 1910. The revolution would have a profound impact on Mexico's economic and social fabric. Section 5. The Mexican Revolution and its aftermath, reshaping the economic landscape. The Mexican Revolution, which spanned from 1910 to 1920, was a complex and bloody conflict that truly transformed Mexico. It was a period marked by intense social upheaval and widespread violence, but also by a fervent desire for change and justice. It led to the overthrow of Diaz and ushered in an era of social and economic reforms. These reforms aimed to address the deep-seated inequalities that had plagued the country for decades. The revolution gave rise to new political actors, including peasant leaders like Emiliano Zapata and Pancho Villa. These leaders became symbols of the struggle for land and liberty. One of the most significant outcomes of the revolution was land reform. This was a crucial step in redistributing wealth and power in the country. The haciendas, which had dominated land ownership for centuries, were broken up. This dismantling of the old landholding system was essential for creating a more equitable society. Land was redistributed to peasants, fulfilling one of the revolution's central promises. This redistribution was not just about land, it was about giving people a stake in their country's future. The revolution also led to the nationalization of key industries, such as oil and railroads. This move was aimed at ensuring that the wealth generated by these industries benefited the nation as a whole. The Constitution of 1917 enshrined many of the revolution's ideals. It was a landmark document that sought to create a fairer and more just society. It guaranteed labor rights, social welfare provisions, and limitations on foreign ownership of land. These provisions were designed to protect the interests of the Mexican people. The revolution laid the foundation for a more inclusive and socially conscious economic model in Mexico. It was a transformative period that reshaped the nation's economic landscape, setting the stage for future growth and development. Section 6. The Mexican Miracle: Industrialization, Growth, and Its Limits. Following the turmoil of the revolution, Mexico entered a period of relative stability and economic growth that lasted from the 1940s to the 1970s. This era marked a significant transformation in the country's economic landscape. This period, known as the Mexican Miracle, was characterized by rapid industrialization, urbanization, and rising living standards. Cities expanded, and infrastructure improved, reflecting the nation's newfound prosperity. The government pursued a policy of import substitution industrialization, or ISI. This strategy was designed to foster self-sufficiency and reduce reliance on foreign imports. ISI aimed to reduce dependence on foreign goods by promoting domestic production. Factories began to produce goods that were previously imported, boosting local industries. The government protected domestic industries from foreign competition through tariffs and other trade barriers. These measures were crucial in nurturing the nascent industrial sectors. This strategy led to the growth of manufacturing sectors, such as automobiles, electronics, and consumer goods. These industries flourished, creating jobs and contributing to economic growth. The Mexican economy grew at an average annual rate of over 6% during this period. This impressive growth rate was a testament to the effectiveness of the ISI policies. However, the Mexican Miracle had its limitations. Despite the impressive growth, not all sectors benefited equally, and disparities began to emerge. ISI policies created inefficiencies and fostered corruption. The heavy reliance on government intervention often led to bureaucratic red tape and mismanagement. The model relied heavily on government intervention and protectionism. While this initially spurred growth, it also stifled competition and innovation in the long run. This made the Mexican economy vulnerable to external shocks. Global economic changes and fluctuations in oil prices exposed the fragility of the ISI model. By the 1970s, the model began to show signs of strain. Economic growth slowed, and the limitations of the ISI strategy became increasingly apparent, signaling the end of the Mexican Miracle. Section 7. Crisis and Reform: Navigating Debt, Trade, and Globalization. The 1980s were a turbulent decade for the Mexican economy. The country was hit hard by a global debt crisis. Falling oil prices, rising interest rates, and unsustainable borrowing practices led to a severe economic downturn. Mexico faced hyperinflation, capital flight, and a decline in living standards. In response to the crisis, the Mexican government implemented a series of market-oriented reforms. These reforms included privatization of state-owned enterprises, deregulation of industries, and trade liberalization. Mexico joined the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, or GATT, in 1986, and later signed the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, in 1994. These reforms marked a significant shift away from the ISI model that had dominated Mexico's economy for decades. The goal was to integrate Mexico into the global economy and attract foreign investment. However, the transition was not without its challenges. Section 8. Mexico in the 21st century, a mixed bag of progress and challenges. The 21st century has brought both opportunities and challenges for the Mexican economy. Mexico has benefited from its integration into the global economy, particularly through trade with the United States. The country has become a major exporter of manufactured goods, especially automobiles and electronics. However, Mexico continues to grapple with persistent poverty, inequality, and corruption. The informal economy remains large, with many Mexicans working in low-wage, insecure jobs. Drug-related violence and insecurity have also posed significant challenges to economic growth and investment. Despite these challenges, Mexico has made progress in recent years. The country has experienced modest but steady economic growth. Poverty rates have declined, and access to education and healthcare has improved. Mexico's young and growing population represents a potential demographic dividend for the future. Section 9. Looking ahead. Opportunities and obstacles for Mexico's economy. Mexico stands at a crossroads in its economic development. The country has the potential to become a major player in the global economy. However, it must overcome significant challenges to achieve sustained and inclusive growth. Key among these challenges is the need to strengthen the rule of law, combat corruption, and improve security. Investing in education and infrastructure will be crucial to boosting productivity and competitiveness. Mexico must also address deep-seated inequalities and create more opportunities for its citizens. The country's future prosperity will depend on its ability to leverage its strengths, address its weaknesses, and navigate the complexities of the globalized world.